Hello, and welcome to the Art of Being Selfish. I'm Dr. Sims, a licensed psychologist, and on this channel, I discuss ways that you can take care of yourself or be selfish so that you feel nourished and filled enough to take care of others. Now, while we will be discussing topics related to mental health on this channel, this is not a substitute for therapy. So, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I'm really excited to be back on the couch talking to you all, especially for today's episode. It's very special to me, and I hope that it will be very special to you all during this holiday season. I'm actually going to invite Mr. Dr. Sims onto the couch so we can talk about love, and we can talk about how to find love and what the meaning of love and marriage and relationships is as we celebrate Valentine's Day. So, tune in, and I hope you all enjoy the conversation ahead. So, hey babe, welcome to the show.
What's going on, sweetie? Thanks for having me.
Of course. What better person to have on and talk about love and marriage and relationships than you?
Jesus.
Okay. So,
He's always a great person.
Yes, and Jesus is always present when two or more are gathered. So, let's jump into the questions. First, tell us what your definition of love is.
I would say my definition of love follows, it's pretty much the Bible definition that we all know. Love is patient, kind, and all that. But if I had to put it in just normal, regular, easy terms, I would say love is a conscious decision to do those things which we naturally tend to not want to do for the benefit of self and others, mainly others. So those times when you want to react a certain way, not doing that for the benefit of that other person is love to me. And it's a conscious effort. It's not a feeling. It's you deciding to do it and loving, actually doing it, like enjoying doing it, for the benefit of the other person.
Absolutely. I love that because I think that that's kind of the premise of this show, and I really wanted to get back to that space of making sure that we're talking about how to be selfish while also loving others, because it is about loving and doing for others as well. So I'm so glad that you brought that into the conversation. And I would agree with you. I think that my original understanding of love, I would say kind of an immature understanding of it, was that it was a feeling, and that you focus on, oh, do I feel like I love you? And on those days where you don't feel like you love someone, it's like, what am I supposed to do? So it definitely took a lot of life to really consider what love is from an action standpoint and from a selfless standpoint, to really make sense of what that means. So
I'm glad you said from an action standpoint, because love is definitely action. You can tell somebody you love them all day and not mean it, but your actions, you don't have to say a word, your actions will show it.
that's so true. That's so true. So speaking of that, it takes me to my next question of, with your definition of love, with it being an action, with you thinking about like 1 Corinthians definition of love, how do you act out love in your marriage, in your friendships, in your family?
Oh, that's easy. So those times when my amazing wife will say, babe, can you do me a favor? And the natural, the human part of me wants to say, not really, but the love in me says, of course I want to do it. And I happily do it. Or when friends call and they want you to help them move for the 16th time, you jump up and you help them move, even when you don't feel like it. And I think the key is not complaining about it, but you can actually enjoy doing those things, even though, your first initial response may not be that. You can actually enjoy doing it because the person is worth it. Like, that they mean something to you, and you're doing it for a loving reason, and you would want them to do the same for you. So those type of things, like just being there, being present, when people need me, when it's hard, is when I think it matters the most. It's easy to be present when things are going well, when it's easy, but when it's hard, those are the times when I really try to make sure I'm there for someone. Just do those things.
So being present and doing things even when maybe you don't necessarily want to, but out of love, you do it for them.
I do it for them. And then after you, kind of continue to do that, you really you want to do those things, you actually want to do it because of the joy it brings the other person when you do it. So
So seeing that joy in other people really means a lot to you.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And I would agree with that. I think that in that selflessness of love, it does sometimes take doing things that you don't necessarily want to do for other people. And I really love the practicality of First Corinthians, because it really does show you just a practical way that you can act out love. So being patient, and Lord knows patience is a skill that is developed, but being patient, being kind, not boasting or bragging, not keeping a record of wrongdoing, like those are such practical steps for how to act out love. And I really do try to embody that as much as I can. It's hard, but you're right, like seeing the joy in another person can really make all of that worth it. And I enjoy thinking about love in that way, and it applies to so many different things. I remember being on social media one day and seeing someone say, put your spouse's name into First Corinthians. So like, you are love, you are patient, you are kind. And I also recently read, put God's name instead of love. And it's just like, when you put those in there, it just really, it takes that whole entire scripture and it makes it a completely different thing. So I really appreciate thinking about love in that way. So let's move on to talking a little bit about dating and relationships and kind of looking for love in relationships. So when you think about finding a significant other and kind of what the things are that you should be looking for as you're dating and looking for a significant other, what are some of the signs that maybe a person is someone that you should keep dating or that you should consider possibly spending the rest of your life with?
I would say one of the main things is that your core beliefs match up. If those don't align, then it's going to be pretty tough to keep together, especially when things get tough, because that's what you go back to and what you rely on. And so if you all don't see eye to eye there, it's pretty easy to separate, because you can have similar or different likes. Those things are fine, they don't matter, but core beliefs are important. But in a spouse or someone you're thinking about settling with, I would say try to find someone or make sure that person is open and not kind of set in their ways or not willing to grow or to change. I don't want to say the word change, but I mean, it fits. But just someone who's open to listen and open to actually consider things from a different viewpoint and willing to adapt or change. That's huge. And I would say someone who is not closed to advice. I think the best thing people can do is use the wisdom of other people, use what they've been through, especially when it comes to relationships or marriage or any type of relationship, friendship, whatnot. Use the things that other people have been through to help you avoid them and help you to strengthen your bond with another person. So those are a couple of things I would say to look for.
What would you consider to be some of those core beliefs that you think are important?
I would say, one, know who you serve. You can't straddle the fence with somebody. You'll fall one way or the other. So you all have to kind of be locked in step with serving or believing the same person or believing in the same thing. I would say honesty is a core belief. That's really huge in a relationship. When you can be transparent with someone, it just puts everything out on the table. You have nothing to hide. It just opens up the door for a stronger bond. When someone knows you're not hiding anything, when you can be trusting of someone, you're able to relax in a relationship. So, having the same core belief, being honest with the person. Yeah, those are the top two that I can think of right now. Yeah, so we'll just go with that for now.
Yeah, those are really good ones. Like, I know that there are people who have different spiritual or religious beliefs and become a couple, and I can't necessarily speak to whether or not they've been successful or not in that area. Most of the people that I know do have at least very similar spiritual religious beliefs, but I do think that being on the same page about those very important core beliefs is really important. And honesty and trust and communication, like, definitely top for me.
That was the one I was thinking about. Communicate. It was right here. You know, I couldn't.
Just
it was.
needed me to
I know. I needed you to
pull it out for
you.
you.
See, that's what I'm saying. You find you somebody like that. Someone that when the word is right there, you know, they just feel it and pull it out. That.
Yeah.
But yes, communication is huge. That you can't be together if you don't know what the other person is thinking. And it's important to be willing to talk about any and everything. Everything. No matter how hard it is, you have to communicate. That'll make your relationship very strong.
Absolutely. And even earlier you were talking about someone who's adaptable and willing to change. And I think the way that I conceptualize that is flexibility. So finding someone who's able to be flexible and able to kind of bend and not break and be able to move a little bit in the relationship. They're not super stuck in their ways. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because there's actually a passage in a book that we're reading that really stood out to me in terms of how men view relationships and marriage, honestly. So I want to read the passage to you and see kind of what your thoughts are about that. So the book is The Meaning of Marriage, and the passage talks about men and compatibilities. They were surveyed by the National Marriage Project, and they said that compatibility above all meant someone who showed a willingness to take them as they are and not change them. More than a few of the men expressed resentment at women who tried to change them. Some of the men described marital compatibility as finding a woman who will fit into their life. If you are truly compatible, then you don't have to change, one man commented. So, in thinking about that first statement that you made, like, there's this National Marriage Project survey that's saying that men prior to getting married are saying things like, I don't want a woman to change me. Like, I want you to accept me for who I am, and that's how you're compatible. So, like, what are your initial thoughts and reactions to that?
It's funny. Initially, I'd like to say I think the word change is kind of the problem with this. I don't think anyone actually wants to change. You shouldn't go in a relationship looking to change a person, because if the person they are now is not the person you want to be with, then you shouldn't get in that relationship, because it's not going to work out. Like, you need to go into it saying, I love this person. This is the person I want to be with for who they are now. Now, what people do is grow, not change. You don't change who you are, like the core of who you are, but you adapt, you grow, you learn new things. Not changing. You're still the same person, but you know, when you're with someone, they help you become a better version of you. They don't change you, but they enhance you. It's like you 2.0, you know. It's like Apple, update every other week. So, you know, it gets you someone that helps you be better, a better version of you, who loves who you are for who you are, but then helps you be the best version of yourself that you can't be by yourself.
So I think the change word is about semantics. But the idea is that you're growing. Like, maybe those core beliefs and that solid foundation of who you are, that can be consistent and stay the same in a lot of ways. But there are other things about you that gets enhanced and elevated, and you grow into a better version of yourself.
Most definitely.
That's fair. Yeah, when I read... Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just think when people say that, it's scary, especially for me. It just scares men off. Like, you know, I'm going to change you, or I'm looking for somebody that I can change. It's off-putting. It's like, what's wrong with me now that you feel like you need to do all this stuff to make me who you want me to be? Why can't I just be who I want to be? And then you help that. So.
Yeah, this book talks a lot about that. So I can't wait until we finish it and have good conversations about it.
In depth.
But anywho, another question that I have related to men and kind of being in relationships, I think there's a lot of dialogue around what women can do to prepare for marriage, what women can do to be good wives and good girlfriends, and how to get a man and keep a man. And there's very little dialogue about like what men can do to get ready to get married. So, what would you suggest that men do in preparation for getting married? Like, what is some advice that we can be giving to men around preparing to be a suitable, qualified husband for women?
Okay. On behalf of men, I would like to apologize to the ladies for this sexist society that we live in that tends to put all the pressure on women. It should not be that way. Men need to do a lot more learning and a lot more preparing before marriage, especially if you kind of live the biblical ideal of marriage where God says the man is the head of the household, then you should be the most prepared. So men, let's get ourselves together. So what are some things that men should do to get prepared for marriage? What I would say is kind of going back to the point that I said earlier, like listening to other people's advice. One, to get prepared for marriage, I would say not get a mentor, but go find an older male, married male, or a group of married men, and spend some time with them. Listen to their stories, ask them questions, because unfortunately your single friends don't know a thing. They have a lot of advice for you, but it's typically not valid because they've never been there before. So surround yourself with people who've been there and listen to them. I mean, all of their advice is not going to be great, but you'll be able to weed out the things that will work for you and for others. And then I would also say, don't try to make your relationship, or don't try to do exactly what other people say that works for them. Take their advice and think about who you are and what works for you in the relationship you're currently in, and then work on adapting it so that you all can be better moving forward. I would say there's a lot of information in books. Read books. I know a lot of people tend to not read books, but they're very good. There's good advice in books. Do that. And I would also say counseling. That's one of the best things you can do, especially if you're thinking about getting married. I would encourage couples counseling. It's going to pull out a lot of things you didn't think about. I highly encourage it. As my wife being an amazing therapist, I'm sure she's done her work on me without telling me, but it's very helpful just to talk to someone who really knows and who specializes in that. Yeah, I would say those are 3 things I would recommend. Yeah.
So getting a group of mentors, a group of guys who are married and can offer their wisdom and experience, reading books, which there are a plethora of them, and there really aren't a lot that are specifically for like things to do before you get married for guys in particular, but there definitely are like a couple. But even just being open to the idea of reading a book about marriage, I think is really helpful. I know we read like the 5 love languages, and they have a version for men, which was really nice and really awesome. And I hope that there are other books out there, but they might be a little far and few in between. But there are lots of marriage books out there, so at least reading those as a couple or reading them on your own and talking to your partner about it, like that can be really helpful too. And counseling, even individual counseling, guys can do individual counseling as well. I would highly recommend it.
And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually a really great thing to do. It's a really great thing to do.
He said it, not me. I didn't tell him to say that either. But yeah, I like that. I like those things a lot. So, in thinking about that, tell the truth. What kinds of things do you actually do? Like, did you actually do those things before you got married? Or what other kinds of things did you actually do before you got married to prepare you for marriage?
Of course I'm going to tell the truth. I said that was one of my qualities that you had to have.
Yeah.
Come on. But yes, I did those things. A lot of people who know me, everyone would tell you I have an old soul. So I have a lot of older people that I'm close to or that I spend time with, then there are a lot of people in my family who are married, and growing up, I've always known that I wanted to get married. Even as a kid, I knew that was something that I wanted to do, and so I would watch my aunts and uncles and how they interact, and just kind of look at the things that worked for them or that didn't work for them, and just kind of keep them in the back of my head and to figure out why they didn't work. And then my grandparents, before my grandfather passed, they had been married over 65 years. Yeah, and so just kind of looking at the love they had, I would, talk to them or just look at what they did. And I did read books before we got married. They were really good books, like the Five Love Languages, and the book, what was that book that the pastor wrote in that church in North Carolina?
I don't even remember the name of it.
It was a really good book. Fellas, we're going to find the name of that book. You should read it. There are a lot of grammatical errors in it. I don't know who his editor was, but he needs to get rid of them. Outside of that, though, the information is really good. It's a really easy read. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good book. Like, it's one of those that you pick up and you don't want to put down. So
now I'm be thinking about it this whole time.
I know, right? It was such a good. It must be upstairs somewhere.
Probably.
Yeah, but I did read several books. They were good, and what else did I do to get prepared for marriage? I saved up my money so I can buy a ring. That's what I did.
Praise the Lord. We'll talk about finances on another session. But
so yeah. And what was the third thing I said?
Couples counseling.
Yes, we did couples counseling, and it was great. Wasn't the easiest thing because they give you homework as a heads up, and homework is never fun, but it's worth it. So.
See, I really enjoy homework, but go figure.
I like when I'm at home. I like to be home and not work. Home and work are two different things. I don't know. Whoever decided to make them one word, they should be stoned. Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, I knew what you did before we got married, but
of course you did.
I think it's helpful to talk about that and really do that reflection, so that people know that walking into marriage isn't something that you do lightly. And in any relationship, there is a growing process, and I think that, and I would hope that as a result of doing those things in preparation, that you would have grown and you would be a better version going into the relationship and kind of continue that process. And I think that for a lot of women, we are groomed to be self-reflective and focus on personal development and focus on improving. So it's we are constantly doing that. So it's difficult when we walk into relationships with men who really aren't doing that, who really aren't focusing on that. So kind of trying to find how do you navigate that situation can be really difficult and really disappointing for a lot of women. So I really hope that there are some guys that can kind of take that advice and be prepared. And I also just recently saw that there are lots of devotionals in the Bible app that focus on men, and I was really excited about that. I was looking at marriage devotionals and a lot of how to be a good husband, uncommon dads, all kinds of things focused on men and good husbands. So I'm really excited that maybe there's a movement towards that, but I really hope that guys take more advantage of those opportunities.
I do too.
So to wrap up, we're going to talk a little bit about being selfish. So what do you think it means to be selfish in a relationship, or how do people practice being selfish in marriages and relationships when they have significant others?
I would say being selfish in a relationship to me means continuing to do those things that bring you joy or that kind of make you who you are, that you enjoy, that help you relax or kind of escape, that you did before you all were together. Continue to do those things in your relationship. And when you're with a great spouse or someone who actually understands you and knows who you are, they'll kind of aid in those things. They'll give you the time or support you in doing those things. So for me, I enjoy fishing. And so I that's my time to kind of get out in nature, and I can think and clear my head, and it's very peaceful. It's a very relaxing time to me. Did it before I was married. I do it now. And then just taking advantages of times for me. I'm a people person. I like to be around people, but I also really enjoy my alone time, like just me, not my wife, not anybody else, just me. So I take advantage of the times when she's gone and nobody's in the house, and I just have so much fun during those times. Yeah, not as much fun as when she's around, but just enough fun to keep me sane. So that's how I practice being selfish.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I think that a lot of times when we talk about selfishness, which is why I wanted to kind of hyphenate the word a little bit, is that it's kind of like me. It's all focused on me. And I do think that there's a balance of, yes, nourishing and filling yourself, but also being aware of how yourself impacts other people. And for me, like, practicing self-care and being selfish really does have a lot to do with, like, balancing those things. So I too, I'm not as much a people person as you are, but I enjoy being around people when I want to be around people. But I really enjoy spending time with you. So even though that's not like alone time, my time spent with you really does like fill me and nourish me. So, but I also do, like, I love, one of my favorite things to do is to come home right after work, like before anybody gets here, and just like sit down in the house, take my bra off, and just like breathe. And it's the most peaceful thing ever. And I just need like that 10 to 15 minute break just to recharge and rejuvenate. And it's not like I don't want to be around people, but it's just beautiful to find the peace. Like, I think our home is a very peaceful place. So I enjoy like soaking some of that in. But I also do think that a part of being selfish is figuring out ways to like give back and engage to other people. So like you talked about earlier, practicing that love and expressing that in a lot of ways, being able to do that for other people is also me practicing being selfish and taking care of myself. So I enjoy being able to do that as well.
Yeah. Of course.
Well, babe, that's all that I have. Thanks so much. That was it. Easy peasy, right? Did you have something else that you wanted to share?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. So thank you for coming on and talking to us about love. We hope that you all have a very happy Valentine's Day. And even if it's a Galentine's Day, totally fine. Listen, self-love is all amazing as well. And we will see you sometime soon.
That's right. Cheers.